Hello, and welcome to the Food for You and the Planet podcast, brought to you by Healthy Plan Eat Online Farmers Market. I'm Dr. Rosemary Ostfeld. Together, we'll hear from leaders in environmental science, agriculture, medicine, nutrition, entrepreneurship, and more. Subscribe to hear the latest in healthy and sustainable food solutions. Today's episode features Ben McLean III, Head of Research at Uncle Matt's Organic. Ben is a fourth-generation citrus grower born in Clermont, Florida, where he grew up working in his family's citrus business. Ben attended the University of Florida, where he obtained a bachelor's degree in health science in 1988 and a master's degree in horticultural science in 1991. Ben has been involved in citrus production research since his graduation in 1991 and has collaborated with numerous university scientists during his career, focused on the interaction of nutrition and plant health. He is currently the head of research for Uncle Matt's Organic, the nation's oldest and best-selling organic orange juice brand. He is also the president of McLean Family Farms that currently manages over 100 acres of organic production, primarily in citrus and peaches. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today, Ben.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Can you tell me about your family's citrus growing history?
Yeah. Um, so we are fourth generation. I'm a fourth generation citrus grower. We're located here in Central Florida. My great grandfather, Angus Benjamin, came to the uh, great state of Florida here in the late 1800s and was a citrus grower. And I learned it obviously from my grandfather and my father. And myself, I'm 60 years old. I've been in the business since I graduated from University of Florida with a master's degree in horticultural science and have had the pleasure to be in several family businesses, all citrus related or heavily involved in citrus. We work together, my dad, my brother, and I currently. And like I said, my dad also has several brothers that are involved in the citrus industry as well. So grew up, born and raised here in the little town of Clermont, Florida, in Lake County, that at one time in the early 80s was basically the heart of the citrus industry and had 140,000 plus acres of citrus and over 44 million boxes of oranges that were produced here. The vast majority of that was wiped out in the catastrophic freezes of the 80s, 83, 85, and 89. And we quickly then transitioned, obviously, in Central Florida into a residential community, kind of a bedroom community for Orlando. So a lot of the citrus is gone here, but we're still involved in the business in many ways. We still have some groves here in Lake County and still do research and production here.
What are some unique facts about Uncle Matt's Organic?
Yes, I mean, from the really simple, humble, and sincere beginnings and conversations that myself and my dad, my brother, and I had with my grandfather about, how organic farming was done in the past and could be done again. From that, it's grown to the nation's oldest and largest selling organic orange juice brand, founded in 1999, and it's in over 20,000 stores nationwide, particularly in the Whole Foods, natural foods types of channels. And that's something that, we're just really proud of and just so happy that we've been blessed with that level of success.
What made you decide to continue the family tradition of growing citrus?
I think having grown up in it, it was just my love for it. I moved out, obviously, and with my parents when I was in first grade to Sugarloaf Mountain, the second highest point in Florida. When I was, a very little boy, and the whole Sugarloaf Mountain in that area of Lake County was just a carpet of citrus groves. So I grew up with the orange blossoms and riding in the back of the pickup truck with my dad, and got to pick fruit and plant trees, work with it, learned it, and just became a love. As my dad said, it was in our blood. And sometimes we joke and just say, well, we're not smart enough to do anything else, so we just stayed in the citrus business. But all kidding aside, we just have as a family, we have a love and passion for fresh squeezed citrus orange juice that we used to drink every morning growing up right out of our backyard with my dad. We Obviously, ate a lot of fresh grapefruit and have been passionate in other businesses that we got into along the way with making byproducts out of the citrus peel. And I got into college and I found that I got into health and exercise science in my undergrad, and exercise physiology. And then when I went to pursue my master's degree, I prayed about it. I just felt like God spoke to me and said, get back into agriculture. So that kind of rekindled the love I had for the citrus business. I worked a lot in orange groves to get myself through college. I ran a pruning crew in the summer of 1984 as we tried to prune a lot of the damage that had happened. That got me through my first 2 years of college. And then after that, even I would mow groves, plant trees on the weekends to get through. So I still had that connection to the industry even while I was getting my 2 degrees, University of Florida. And I just decided that I wanted to get back in it. I loved growing things always. One of my clear loves of it has been, why do I love growing plants? Well, plants can't lie, right? People can lie, but plants and animals can't lie. So when you get into that type of area of production, it's wonderful. Everything you put in, you get back. And again, it gives you the ability to just interact with nature. All science begins with observations of nature, as we were taught. And so that's how I became back to get back interested in it and love for it.
I love that. That's awesome. And I like how you've tied in important values like honesty and health. People getting access to healthy food is so important. So it all really does tie together. The food, the agriculture, and nature.
It does. And my grandfather impressed this upon me when I was real young. I had a lot of time that I got to spend with my grandfather, and I'm named after him. I'm Ben the third. And my grandfather used to say his famous thing about, he would say in the final analysis, and he's making a point, but he said, in the final analysis, farming is just about taking care of other folks. And he says, if you're not in this to take care of other folks, you're in the wrong business and you need to get out. And he said, you ought to grow a crop that you consume yourself and that you're proud of, and that when you send it down the line, you know that the person that's consuming it is better off for it. And he stressed that with us. Early on, of course, he told me about all the older methods of farming that were never disproven, basically, in their efficacy. They were simply displaced. So that gave me a passion too for a lot of the old ways of farming that had cover cropping and using, composted manures, uh, basically, sustainable types of inputs from liquid lime sulfur and other things. And he told me about all the success that they could have in the old days when their husbandry was, proper and on time. And so a lot of that helped to encourage me along the way too. But I took that basic approach going forward. It's about taking care of other people. And having that as your goal, then you're going to be fine in the end. And as my granddad said, you just take care of other people and you take care of your customers, then you'll get all the money you need. You may not get all the money you want, but you'll have all the money you need when you're doing it for the right reasons in the right way.
That's really important. So you're named after your grandfather, and it sounds like there's a really important family dynamic in your business. How did the name Uncle Matt's Organic come into being?
Yeah, that actually came by divine intervention. My wife came up with that name. Yes, of all things. Um, my wife and I are Christians, and my wife was given uh, the charge by my brother, hey, help me come up with a name. Back in the late 1990s, my brother wanted to get into the organic juice business. And I never forget my wife saying, they had all these options of, healthy farms or Peaceful Valley or something like that. And one morning, my wife woke up and actually told me, said, hey, I had a dream last night, I think that came from God about naming your brother's business. And I said, oh, what? She says, I think he should call it Uncle Matt's Organic, and he should put all the kids on the label and talk about family and taking care of other people. So in so many ways, it reflected the values that my grandfather had that he passed on in his citriculture, if you will. Um, and it became that. And at the time, he just had like three nieces and nephews, but over time he got 10 more, by the grace of God, and his own two kids as well. So he is the real uncle of 12 nieces and nephews, and put that on the label, and it happened from there.
That's great. I bet the picture on the label grew to include more and more happy children. That's really sweet.
Absolutely. And it's been a great blessing because along the way, like we did, I'm sure we can talk about this down the way, but we did U-pick peach orchards that we would have organic production in. And so those nieces and nephews helped my dad run those. And, we did a lot of organic U-pick days and we would sample juice. And so we would tie all of that together so that it helped us create a brand back in the day that, became authentic and, presented all of our values as a family and as a company.
Can you tell me about the ways your family members are involved in the business?
Right. Well, obviously, my brother's CEO, Uncle Matt's, and is named by Matt McLean. Uh, I'm head of research. My dad basically is head of production. We work together. Uh, my sister-in-law, Matt's wife, Susan, is the head of marketing. And then in our old iteration before years ago, my mom did HR, and one of my brother-in-law, Alex, he also helped in the business side. So yeah, we've all been involved on several levels like that. And of course, all the 12 nieces and nephews, the grandchildren of my father, have worked in a variety of ways, particularly out in the peaches and others with the U-pick days. So it's been a family business from day one. And we also have McLean Family Farms as an aside. That's where we actually hold our organic certificate, and we've done a lot of our actual production in the citrus groves. And so we work in that as far as my dad and I and planting back some groves for experimental purposes and research while managing other groves and various fruit and vegetable production on the farm plan through the years.
You mentioned that you hold the organic certification. Why is organic agriculture important?
Gosh, I think it's important on several levels. And, forgive me, no order of importance, but I think first and foremost, it's such an important production system to bring to the marketplace. We're a system that, in the heart and the spirit of the National Organic Program, all the inputs and all the practices are all natural. There's synthetics that are prohibited, there's some practices that are prohibited, and there's practices that are natural and conservation minded that are obviously required to have your certification. It's so important that you are obviously come up with a farm plan where you talk about, crop rotation, soil management, soil health management, the use of cover crops to build soil organic matter, at least maintain it, the stewardship that's required as you're also to maintain, natural environments, boundaries, and sectaries. I think that's so important that that type of a farming system gets recognized and got codified and brought into the federal regulations and had its own label. I think it's very important because, as Dr. Jessica Shade and others at um, the, the OTC has the the Organic Center, TOC, has the research there where it showed that the organic farming is more nutrient dense. It produced a final product that is more nutrient dense. And obviously, it allows us to create a product that is free of residues of synthetic pesticides. And for the customers out there, like myself and others that want to minimize as best as we can our exposure to synthetic pesticides. We want to reward producers as best as we can in our purchasing decisions that, have natural, sustainable practices in their production, and that's monitored and certified by the federal government. I think it's so great that we have a system of that. And then also, I think it's very important that we have organic production because it is non-GMO. And for those out there that disagree with the genetic modification, particularly outside of species like myself, I don't want to consume plants or animals that have had synthetic genes or genes outside of their species artificially inserted. And I have concerns about possibly, the proteins that may be created out of that or any of the molecules. I'm concerned that there may not be adequate safety data, or I'm also concerned that the GMO production system has the inclusion of a lot of glyphosate in it, and the crops are sprayed with that, and that may, for example, inhibit aromatic amino acid biosynthesis or something. I think it's great that we have a product out there that we can look for a label and we can purchase. And so I think the big three things there is, um, nutrient density, pesticide residues, and not consuming anything that's a GMO. And it gives us that alternative there. And then finally, like I said, it's important because if properly managed and properly implemented, it obviously has a very strong component of sustainability, environmental conservation. Those values and those practices are reflected in the production as well.
How do your growing practices differ from non-organic citrus growers?
Well, I would think, of course, and there's a real broad array of production practices, right? There's a whole gamut of people's organic production practices, non-organic production practices. There's a whole range. So, audience, forgive me for overgeneralizations. But to repeat, I think the first thing is our practice is different in that we are not allowed, obviously by certification law, to apply any synthetic pesticides, fertilizers and others. That means we're not using, for example, ammonium nitrate as a synthetic fertilizer. We're not using glyphosate as a synthetic herbicide. We're not using organophosphates or imidacloprids as synthetic insecticides. I think those are some of the biggest things. We have to use all natural inputs and methods. We use a variety of things we've used in the past. Our nutritional inputs are things that have been recycled, from coffee grounds to peanut meal to cottonseed meal to liquid fish products they often come from byproducts of the food processing system. We use obviously manures that have been composted. We use compost. We use a lot of vermicompost and others. And I think that's where a lot of our practices begin to differ over time. Now, there's some similarities in that some of my real good friends that are conventional growers, they also plant cover crops. They also use composts. They may also use fish products. Actually, it's funny how a lot of conventional growers that are well-minded and appreciate regenerative practices, sustainability. There's now becoming more and more of a crossover. Um, I think some of our practices differ, though, in that for my dad and I, we're very passionate about biological control release and have been that through the years. We're very passionate about using and making our own compost teas. So that's another way that we may differ. Um, Obviously, we use a lot more mechanical cultivation and hand labor for weed control. We would definitely differ there. We have tried to use some of the approved materials for organic weed control. Your vinegars and your oils, we haven't had as much success with them as we would like, but we do use them. But again, mechanical control and old school cultivation of weed control and physical barriers like weed mats and others, we use a lot more of those, and that's another way we would differ. But I think that the single biggest thing is, and by the way, in citrus, in conventional production as well too, there are no GMO citrus varieties available, unlike cotton and unlike soybeans. So everything that's produced in the Florida orange juice, California fresh citrus markets, they're all conventional breeding. So if there was a GMO plant or citrus tree that was available, we would not be able to use it because we're an organic. But there is nothing available for commercial use right now. So I think the biggest thing is the lack of use of the synthetic materials, pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers. Um, that to me is the biggest thing that separates us in our practices.
Could you tell me a little bit about the research you do?
Yes, a lot of the research that we do, wow, I could talk for a couple hours about that. I think several levels of research we do. The first level is genetic research. My dad and I have planted out several rootstocks and scion varieties in citrus. The scion is the grafted portion on top of the rootstock. So we do genetic research in that we plant these resistant rootstocks or tolerant rootstocks and tolerant scions to help us get through the very painful and dreaded citrus greening disease. So So we have, different varieties planted out, navels, grapefruit, pomelos, sugar bells, Valencia oranges. We have several varieties planted out that we're trying to observe and see if there's a strong enough tolerance to go forward to get us through the citrus greening disease as an organic producer. Um, we're also always evaluating products and inputs for their efficacy. So we take labeled organic products and we'll go out and we'll do trials with them to see if we can find efficacy. We test seaweeds, we test, micronutrients, we test biological products like that to see the efficacy we can find there. Um, We've also worked extensively, like at University of Florida, with, say, Dr. Javad Qureshi and others in entomology. They come out and have studied beneficial insect populations and looked at that. We release Tamarixia, biological control agents, the little beneficial wasps. And so we've worked with University of Florida researchers and others to come out and look at those populations in our groves. We continue to release those to this day. Um, we've done cover crop research for years. For example, Dr. Davy Cadmium Picani at the University of Florida. We've planted cover crops out and we've looked at nitrogen fixation, carbon fixation, and uptake and release of micronutrients and others. Those types of studies are ongoing as well. So we've really tried to engage our public sector on a variety of levels and do research over time. I also put out several years of applications of psyllid control agents. That's the vector that spreads citrus greening disease. And we've evaluated different materials and replicated plots to actually control that. We've sprayed out kaolin materials and pyrethrins from flowers, variety, all approved for organic use. And so we've also done compost trials with the University of Florida and are continuing to do those as well, making compost applications and studying any changes that might happen over time and biological populations, organic matter creation, carbon retention, and others. So that's, I could talk for hours, but that's the type of research that we've done and continue to do. We're very passionate about that, trying to, show that we care and that we're knowledge leaders in the industry and environment, and we try to share that through our social media presence and others.
That's amazing that you're doing all that research as a business and that you're collaborating with universities to try to bring the industry forward with all of these sustainable practices. That's really impressive.
One area of research we did too that also is has will be ongoing long term, but like we worked with a Dr. Katil Shetty at Florida International University, FIU, and they came and studied in our organic orchards, and they found some unique bacteria that was there that wasn't in other conventional orchards, and they found that that bacteria could also help control the citrus greening disease. They isolated it, made unique metabolites, and so, things like that. We're also trying to find, not only biological control agents above ground, but biological, entities below ground as well, and anything that unique that they may create. One of the areas too that we do ongoing research and study on is the this phenomenon of escape and survivor trees. We're being crushed with the citrus greening disease, which just as a digression is a disease vectored by the Asian citrus psyllid that carries a pathogenic bacteria, and as it feeds on our trees, it gives a bacterial infection inside that becomes systemic, similar to malaria in humans. It's wiped out, the majority of our production in the state of Florida. I mean, we've gone from 240 million boxes to about 12 million this year. Some of that's due to residential pressure and real estate development, but most of that is due to the citrus greening disease just really hurting us economically. And then, with the high price of land, the pressure to sell for real estate development and to not plant back is obviously very difficult to not succumb to. So what has happened there with the citrus greening disease is, as it's spread through the state, we're obviously trying to come up with, solutions and ways that we can, come around that. And the research at FIU was about seeing if we could find unique bacterial organisms that might help in that. Now, in the survivor tree and the escape tree phenomenon, there are trees that have shown that they are almost resistant to this disease. Many of them are seedlings, many of them are grown in remote locations, even dooryard, and so dooryard situations in people's yards. And so, what we're trying to do within Uncle Matt's is study what's the unique biology, endophytes within the trees, or perhaps root biology. What's the unique microbiome in, on, and around those trees? What's the unique soil nutrition or not that may be there, as well as the genetics of that tree and its response to the challenge, which is giving it this survivor phenomenon situation.
You mentioned some of the challenges citrus growers face. Would you be able to elaborate upon that a little bit more?
So the main challenge that the citrus grower faces in Florida, conventional organic, as I said, is the citrus greening disease. And I just mentioned what that is and the threat of it. It's been nearly impossible to control and to eradicate. Part of that is because there's many millions of dooryard trees, survivor trees around in people's yards and out in the swamps. There's jasmine plants, and all of those are a host for the vector. So we can't do area-wide sprays, organic or conventional, to help us control the vector. Um, and our humid subtropical climate in Florida favors the biology of the psyllid and the biology of the bacterial disease inside as well to expand and to proliferate. So that's our biggest challenge right now. That we also face the challenges that so many other farmers face where, we have challenges of regular supply of labor. We do pretty good with H2A. A lot of growers have, real good programs there. But with a booming real estate economy and around us and others, we always have the challenge of regular supply of labor. We have the challenges, obviously, of urbanization. The high price for land is an incentive to not stay in any type of agriculture, but rather to, you're almost forced to sell out and move to other areas. So, fortunately, we don't have the challenges of water supply like our friends that grow in the desert areas, but we are seeing more and more a challenge of lowering the water quality, particularly in our more coastal areas, as we get a little bit more saltwater intrusion, the urbanization, the pressure there that'll come on our Florida aquifer and our wells and our irrigation systems to supply water to supplement the rainfall. We're seeing a gradual diminishing of that over time. That's another challenge we're going to face long term. Will we have water regulations and what's the quality of irrigation water? And then I think as well, every farmer we're faced with challenges of unfair trade practices, trade bills, tariffs, and others. And I think the other thing too is, Florida, we in all of agriculture, we do an excellent job of producing as an ag community. We're the highest cost producer. We have a lot more regulations we have to comply with, the cost of land, labor, and capital. And to be fair and treat the people that work for us in the right way and pay them what they deserve to be paid. We have a lot more costs that affect our production here. And so when we have to compete sometimes with foreign markets that are subsidized, whereas ours aren't per se, particularly in fruit and vegetable production, and citrus, is be there as well. When we have to compete like that, it can get very tough. So those are some of the challenges that I see us facing.
Uncle Matt's Organic was the first juice company in the United States to be certified glyphosate Roundup residue free. Why was it important for you to ensure that glyphosate was not used and for residue testing and certification to happen?
Well, on several levels. I mean, first, our customers were asking for it, and we felt that it was important for us to show that into the marketplace. Obviously, glyphosate is a prohibited synthetic, which would not be allowed in any organic production. And we're passionate about the organic citrus that we grow and the organic citrus that we source, as you see on our label, from other countries. So we make sure that we're aligned with producers that share those same values. And, we're happy to bring that transparency into the marketplace. We thought that was important. And then also along the way, there was, um, how was it, Moms Across America. Forgive me if I get it wrong here, but there were others that had come and had examined the glyphosate concentration found in crops out there, including orange juice as well too, showing that there were obviously levels in there. And our own state of Florida has found levels of glyphosate in candies and other products like that. Yes, our Surgeon General Adipo and others are doing a good job of measuring that and showing that. So along the way, I think as we heard from our customers and looked at it ourselves, that's something that we wanted to be transparent and show the marketplace that obviously being organic, we're glyphosate and residue free. The other thing that I think was really important in that is, as we all know, I mean, we had heard, gosh, 15, 20 years ago, all the problems that were becoming apparent in the lawsuits out there, the glyphosate, was causing health problems in those people that were applying it and others and being exposed to it. I had listened to a lot of teachings and a good personal friend of mine, Dr. Don Huber, about the problems with glyphosate on human health and others. 10, 15 years ago, I was listening to that as well too. And, we just shared those values that's something that over time, those residues need to be eliminated and, in our food supply. And of course, being organic, you obviously that's a synthetic prohibited material that you can't use. So
How do you think the food system could be improved to encourage and support organic farmers?
that's such a great and important question. I think that any way that we could bring nutrient density measurements uh, to the retail sector, whether it's handheld applications, apps that I've heard about from Dan Kittredge and others that could possibly go on your smartphone, to tools that are now being sold, any way that we could show that products that are grown organic, and of course, if you grow organic and follow the farm plan, you are regenerative. So I don't mean to downplay the regenerative certification, but if you follow the true organic production practices, you're going to be regenerative as well too, because you're going to be cover cropping, you're going to be maintaining insectaries, you're going to be building and maintaining soil organic matter, you're going to be conserving resources. So, but I think that any way we could get nutrient density as part of the as part of the conversation on the retail level, that would be a big help. Also, pesticide residues as well too. I mean, I think that we could, begin to show that. The other thing too, I think that it would be so important that we could show that there's some type of score for that as well too. If we had some kind of an independent, analysis there that a third party lab that was measuring those amounts and showing that, communicating it back to the marketplace, that would justify and validate so much of what we're doing. And in fact, years ago, I thought about coming up with some type of a measurement, like a gene chip or something else that you could actually use to measure certain genes that were being turned on with organic and sustainable type of production versus others. We know that, for example, glyphosate residues, they inhibit shikimate pathway metabolism and others, and there's the signatures that you can detect through messenger RNA synthesis and others if something has had pesticides applied to it, or if its protein synthesis has been interrupted. And I think that we could come up easily with measurements and values like that then would reward the final producer. If we can show that there's more minerals, more, vitamins, more antioxidants, more phytonutrients in that final product due to this label, this organic USDA label, then we're going to get rewarded then at the end with a differentiation in price. I mean, everything you do, you have to differentiate and educate, right? And if we can differentiate the product and the production method behind it, and then show the value and the nutritional content of it, that would be absolutely key for then creating the extra value at the farm gate for the producer that would help us convert more people to organic, sustainable, regenerative, biological production systems. And when that reward and that incentive is out there, right? Price allocates resources. That's kind of basic free market Adam Smith economics that can apply to this as well too. Those price signals will bring more producers into the arena. And those are the things we got to have long term so that we can bring more production into this arena, more people get satisfied with the end product they consume. And then basically, it's the justification for us to convert so many more acres into this system and then reward the producers for the value that they create.
What do you see as the future of organic food and farming?
Well, I think some of that, what we said, that we're out there uh, in humility sharing the value that we're creating. Also, the ecological benefits that we create by farming this way. I'd like to see more recognition on the USDA level. I think this regenerative farming initiative that Secretary Kennedy and others are putting forth. I'd like to see the future of it is that we actually uh, get some type of determination, again, on the farm at the farm gate for the ecological contributions that are being made by an organic farmer that is truly putting into practice what the NOP says about being regenerative, about being sustainable, and that we get some type of a system there of rankings or of ratings. There's no reason why we can't come up with a certification like that that rewards the value that you're creating whether it's carbon credits or other things that could be traded on an open type of system. And then showing that that goes all the way from the farm gate to the fork at the table, and rewarding the people along the way. That's the future of organic, that it showed that it created value all the way, like my grandfather said, that when it was sent down the line, it created value for the end person that consumed it. And we need to show, and the future of organic is we're going to show that there's an actual health outcome and a benefit in the final consumer. It's not just marketing and talk and hype. It truly started with creating value in the soil, managing the soil, that ended up benefiting the end consumer in the end with an actual real health outcome.
Are there any other things you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'd like to share that. I mean, this has been a great passion of my life, and my dad and my brother as well. And it's been a joy. It doesn't feel like work when you go out and do it. And like I said, one of the great things about all of it is the plants can't lie. Right? Plants and animals can't lie. And in this system here, that like I said, was my grandfather said, it was never disproven. It was simply displaced. It was displaced by a much larger industrial scale modern agriculture, which has good things about it too, right? I mean, we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater on all the systems, and we really respect all farmers out there. We're all pulling this together to try to make better products that feed people and take care of everyone, right? But there's practices along the way that I think we know that truly create value. It's been a passion of ours. It's been a love, and I think that there's a great future out there if we just make, again, the end consumer our focus. And say, and what I'm doing is what the I am doing, is that making it better for the person that's consuming it in the end.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you for this really thoughtful conversation, and thank you for the work that you're doing to help people and the planet. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on and giving us a chance to share this.